YouTube. I'm not seeing slowness. I'm not seeing slowness. It looks like it's behaving. Yes, YouTubers, are we actually good today? I think we are. See, I can tell on my end because like when the camera looks normal. Ooh, all right, YouTube. I think we're okay at least for the moment. It's because I can tell because it's moving okay. You know what I did? I literally closed my browser and came right back again because it was being weird. All right, TikTok, getting TikTok going, and then we are ready to go, guys. Get ready, mods. Craziness. All right, mirror video. There we go. All right, welcome everybody to Fantasy Island. I am John Aravosis. Wednesday, June 18. Another crazy day. Hello, TikTokers. I expect the onslaught coming. The TikTok onslaught. We've had a lot of TikTokers. Mods have been quite amused, I'm sure, the last few days. Sorry. Thank you already, Smurf and Ash. Thanks for the gifts. So hello, welcome everybody. Special thanks to our subscribers. We've got Jason, Jens, Elise, BC, Alamo, Carrie. I'm just trying to scroll on YouTube. Penny. On Discord, we got Dave. Thank you, Dave. And on TikTok, who we got? We got Magic. Oop, just looking at who we got our subscribers here today. Magic. Oop. Aaron. I'm trying to scroll up without squinting. Smurf. Anyway, thank you guys for subscribing. Anyway, welcome everybody. John Aravosis here. We are going to talk about Iran today. I did check the Ukraine news. There isn't a ton of Ukraine news. And honestly, this stuff is too important. There isn't a ton of Ukraine news. I mean, I could give you a little stuff like NATO Secretary General says by the end of this year, all NATO allies should reach 2% of defense spending, 2% of GDP on defense spending, which is what we've been asking for, which is great news, actually. But I just feel like all that news kind of trifles in comparison to what's going on with Iran right now. Thank you, Adventures. Thank you, Q. Was that Q Willie or Q Will? Thank you, Fallen. So we're going to talk about the war between Israel and Iran. It does seem to be broadening. Do I think war will start at this point? Yes, I do think so. It's not a guarantee. Thank you, Randy Fred. I think I told you guys I had a class at Georgetown that was really interesting. It was taught. I did master's in foreign service and my law degree at Georgetown, a combined degree. And we had a class at the Foreign Service School that was taught by a former CIA guy, actually two former CIA guys, one of which was involved in the Iran-Contra kind of. He was the one that was involved in Iran-Contra. Professor was the one who said Oliver North's only mistake was taking too many notes. And we all kind of looked at him like, I think Oliver North made more mistakes than that, but that's okay. But the CIA guy was explaining to us how the CIA does analyses. And it was very interesting because he was talking about when they don't get things right. Thank you, Eslin. Thank you, Kronos. When they predict the future and it doesn't happen or whatever. And I don't know if he compared it to the weather, but I compare it to the weather in that he talked about how, thank you, Visionary, when you're CIA or whatever, and you're trying to analyze the future, you're trying to predict what's going to happen, like me right now trying to predict, are we going to war with Iran? He says, you can make a prediction based on the data you have right now, and you can be correct, so to speak. Thank you, Jess. Very nice gift. Appreciate that. Inspired as well. Oh, both of you. Inspired and Jess. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Aileen. You can, in other words, you can make I will say, as of today, I think we are going to attack Iran. As of today. I don't mean we're doing it today. I mean, as of the information we have today, Trump is attacking. But that can change. And what the CIA guy had said to us in our class at Georgetown was, if Trump doesn't attack, it doesn't really mean that my analysis right now is wrong, because I'm making, and he was talking about something else, but I'm making my analysis based on the best information we have today. And as of today, I think Trump will go to war with Iran. But that can change for a variety of reasons. Facts can change on the ground. Maybe in a couple of days, Iran says, oh, okay, we cave. We're going to give up our nuclear enrichment facilities, right? maybe Trump just waffles like Trump does, right? But if Trump waffles, that doesn't mean I'm wrong. It means the facts changed. Anyway, I'm not saying this for myself. I'm saying it because I think it's an interesting way of looking at the weather, for example, is the same way in many ways. They look at all the data they've got and they give the best estimate, but sometimes things change. It doesn't mean the weatherman or weatherwoman's a bad person. In any case, I just say that because somebody asked if we were going to war or not. Anyway, so let's get into this. The news today, by the way, keep the gifts coming. I do this for a living. We'll be here for a little over an hour talking about the latest news with the war. For anybody who's new here on YouTube or TikTok or wherever, I'm John Aravosis. I have a background in foreign policy, journalism, politics. I've lived and worked in Washington, D.C. since 1985. As I said, got my degree here in law and foreign service from Georgetown, and have had a lot of jobs that I think have prepared me to understand foreign policy very well. So I like to try to use these broadcasts to sort of digest the information for you and give you my best take on what's actually going on. For example, like you said, are we really going in or not? So let's jump in, and please do keep the gifts coming, guys. I do this for a living. Your gifts help pay the bills, so I very much appreciate it. Trump today reportedly, or I should say the news today said that as of last night, Trump has approved the attack plan for Iran. Thank you, Phil. That does not mean Trump has approved the attack. Trump has approved the plan of attack should we go in. So they have a plan. They know what they're going to do. He's approved it, but they're waiting for the go ahead. And Trump is waiting to see, according to the articles today, if Iran is going to give up its nuclear program. Basically, it all comes down to enrichment. I talked about this before, but I think it's worth getting it into it again because it's sort of the crux of the issue here, right? We are worried about Iran getting a nuclear bomb. I was watching on CNN right now. I'm forgetting his name. Cedric Leighton, very good colonel, just very smart, reasonable guy. He talks a lot about Ukraine and stuff. He was talking about this. And Leighton was saying how Iran is very far ahead towards getting the nuclear weapon, much closer than they were 5 years ago. So Iran has been continually building towards building a nuke. He said they're even closer ahead today than they were several months ago, that Iran keeps moving forwards towards building a nuke. But, and this was another expert talking earlier, it still could take Iran 6 months to a year or longer to actually build a working nuclear weapon, meaning you've got to, first of all, create enough uranium, enough enriched uranium, pure uranium, like over 70%, but what I was reading said really more like 90%, okay? And it takes time to do that. You need centrifuges. We've all heard of centrifuges to purify the uranium to make a bomb. Then you've got to actually be able to make a bomb that works. That takes some skill. That could take Iran a couple months, who knows? Then let's say Iran tests a nuke and it works. Well, they're going to have a very large nuclear weapon that they can't do anything with, right? If it's the size of a house, you can't transport it. So the next step is trying to miniaturize it and get it to fit on a missile so they actually can fire it somewhere. That could take another 6 months to a year. So U.S. intelligence is saying, it could even take 2 years for Iran from today to actually have a nuclear weapon. The concern is, I'd be concerned, is even creating a nuclear bomb and setting it off, like a nuclear explosion, that's kind of game over, right? If a nuclear bomb goes off in Iran, in a field in Iran, I'm kind of worried, like, okay, do they really not have the ability to deliver it? Could they put it on a car and drive it somewhere? Right, it's, any case. So that's sort of the issue is Iran has been moving towards they are building a nuke, but it takes time. And they've been going slowly on purpose because they know if they get too close to getting finished, they'll get bombed by the Israelis and us. Well, the Israelis bombed them anyway. Second issue. So first was sort of how this works with a couple month period or a year period. Second is, I'm trying to think what I was going to say with Iran. Something I was reading with Trump got me thinking of that. Well, I'm forgetting what second is. I can go back to my notes and we'll keep going. It'll come back to me. So Trump has approved the line of attack. Oh, I know what it was. One key component of building, in a way, the key component of building the nukes is purifying the uranium, getting the uranium pure enough, getting rid of the impurities so that you've got like 90% uranium, right? It takes centrifuges. Well, under the nuclear deal that President Obama reached with the Iranians, they gave up most of their centrifuges. I went and I grabbed the data here. Hang on a second. I hope I put it in my notes before I printed them, or I'm going to be very upset with myself. Let me see. I think I printed them out before I did. I did. I'm so bad. I am so bad. I'm going to open my notes here because CNN had a really interesting article that I grabbed the notes on, but I think I printed. Basically, under the nuclear, Iran got down to like 50 centrifuges from several thousand. Let me see if I've got it here. Hold on. Just because a lot of you have raised that question of, didn't Donald Trump kind of screw things up? Yes, he did. Here we go. Oh, do have it in my notes. Okay, never mind. I'm not as crazy as I think I am. CNN reports that Iran dramatically increased its number of uranium enrichment centrifuges. These are the tools that Iran needs to create enough nuclear material and pure enough nuclear material to create a bomb. Iran dramatically increased its number of uranium enrichment centrifuges after Donald Trump withdrew from the U.S. from the 2015 nuclear deal. The agreement had previously limited Iran to using fewer than 50 advanced centrifuges, helping cap uranium enrichment at 3.67%. So only 3.67% when they need 90% to make a bomb. Well below weapons grade levels. After the U.S. exited from the deal in 2018 under Trump, Iran installed over 1,300 advanced centrifuges. So under the deal, they only had 50. When Trump pulled out of the deal, Iran said, screw it, we'll get 1,300 centrifuges that we're going to use to make nuclear material for bombs, significantly accelerating its enrichment capabilities. The article underscores that while the deal was in place, Iran's nuclear ambitions were effectively contained through international oversight. So, one thing to keep in mind is Trump did get us to where we are today. Iran has agency too, as the kids like to say. It's not like anybody is making Iran make a nuke. Iran is trying to make a nuclear weapon, but we did have them constrained, and Donald Trump killed the deal. And it's important to remember that. I just think it's important to remember that. Otherwise, what's going on? So the U.S. is preparing for war. That does not mean war is going to happen. But in the last day, we have seen even more U.S. military equipment move east to the Middle East. A third aircraft carrier is now being sent to the region. The third one, I think, is the Gerald Ford. It should arrive by the early next week, I read. Among other craft that are being sent or have been sent, the USS Arleigh Burke, a guided missile destroyer that's going to be traveling with the aircraft carriers, jets and refueling F-16s, F-22s, F-35s, 30-plus KC-135, KC-46 tankers have been moved to Europe. They're in Europe, a lot of them. They're there to refuel planes that are in the air. Bombers and bunker busters. B-2s are on standby with GBU-57s. Those are the bunker buster bombs they need to take out the Ukrainian facilities that are deep in the mountains. The B-2s are based in, those are the black, triangle winged, like it's one big wing plane. That's the B-2. They're stationed in America because they have a range of like 6,000 miles, and they are built to fly from America, attack halfway around the world, and then fly back to America. I think they need to refuel. If they do, they just refuel along the way with a refueling plane. So those do not need to be pre-positioned. Troops, 40 to 50,000 U.S. personnel are in CENTCOM bases on alert. Also, and we saw this last night as well, I was talking to Callum about this, a number of C-17s have left the U.S. for somewhere. Now, why do C-17s matter? C-17s are used, thank you for all the gifts, guys. I do see all the gifts, Karis and Date and Cinderella and Hannah. C-17s are used to transport equipment. And at first I was thinking, well, what's the significance of that? Well, the kind of equipment we would need to transport, if we need more planes to transport equipment, the kind of equipment we would want to transport are troops who go on the ground, tanks that go on the ground, and other military vehicles that go on the ground. The idea of having these planes that can transport equipment, in principle, would be they're transporting equipment that would be used for a ground invasion of maybe this facility in Iran. Doesn't mean we're doing it, but this is my point here is to show you there is a massive fabric of military equipment being moved over to the Middle East, or to Europe at least initially, and then the Middle East, so that Trump can go to war if he needs to. I still think Trump is hoping this puts enough pressure on the Iranians so that they cave and say, we will give up our nuclear enrichment. But if they don't, he's going to war. I mean, unless he pulls a taco, right? Unless Trump totally just flip-flops on this, the amount of military equipment being moved, it just feels very difficult to believe this is a fake. But again, having said that, I'm judging this by normal presidents. Any other president doing this is clearly a preparation for war. Trump doing it, could he flip-flop? Yes. I mean, that's sort of the, you never know. Now, from Iran's position, Iran made clear today, again, they're not planning on blinking. Iran isn't planning on agreeing with us. They keep talking about negotiations. And actually, General Petraeus was on TV today, former U.S. general. And he made a point that I made yesterday with you guys. And he said, we don't need negotiations. He goes, the Iranians know our position. The Iranians can either agree to give up their nuclear program, or they're going to get bombed. And basically, we've already had negotiations. We've had 2 months of negotiations. The Iranians have been dragging their feet on purpose. And right now, the Iranians want the Israelis to call off their airstrikes because the Israelis are winning. So, of course, the Iranians want the Israelis to call off the airstrikes. But all Iran is willing to offer in return is saying, well, if Israel calls off the airstrikes, we'll negotiate. That's not enough. I mean, that's not enough, right? So, yeah, doesn't work that way. Nate says approximately 10 air refueling tankers have been in the air continuously over the Mediterranean over the last 36 hours. Plenty are in position. Yep, exactly. So a little bit more here. We went through Trump sharing some of the blame. A little bit news just of the last day. Israel has intensified airstrikes on Iran with reports of over 40 Iranian targets hit in Tehran alone, including centrifuge production and nuclear-associated facilities. Israel assassinated Iran's wartime chief of staff at a secret mountain compound outside Tehran. This was wild. So this was a story I was telling you guys. Israel killed the second chief of staff, the second head of the military. Last week, or a couple days ago, they killed the first head of the military, the top guy. He then got replaced, and they killed his replacement. Not a very, Spinal Tap drummer kind of job that you want there. Listen to what the Israelis did. Israel assassinated Iran's wartime chief of staff at a secret mountain compound outside Tehran. He and dozens of senior Revolutionary Guard officers had fled their main headquarters in the capital. So they fled the headquarters in the capital and came to this place thinking they'd be safe. Instead, the Israeli Air Force tracked their moves and then eliminated them all in a single strike. So somehow the Israelis are tracking the individual members of the senior leadership of the Iranian government. And these guys were all in some bunker downtown and realized they weren't safe. So they all went to another bunker. But because they were all in the same bunker and the Israelis found them, boom, end of that. Iran has fired back dozens of ballistic and also hypersonic missiles, which I did not realize Iran had. Israel has shot most of them down, but Israel is still taking some significant damage. Civilian damage mostly in Israel. Trump demanded, as you know, I think it was last night, an unconditional surrender of the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians. I keep getting Ukrainians and Iranians mixed up. Trump demanded an unconditional surrender of the Iranians. The Iranian premier or head Khamenei responded live on TV, "We will not surrender," and warned that U.S. involvement would bring irreparable damage. He also posted, "Let the battle begin." little bit more here. I don't think I mentioned this last night. I don't think I did. Did I mention last night about Tulsi Gabbard? So Tulsi Gabbard is this kind of wacky person. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Red, for the gifts. She's kind of the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. of foreign policy. She's an extremist. She's a little scary. Hillary Clinton, I think I did talk about this last night. Hillary Clinton accused her of working for Russia. Well, Trump made her his top intelligence head, which is very scary. Any case, I mentioned last night when they had the big meeting yesterday to discuss bombing Iran, she was not invited. And supposedly she's put the rumor out there that she's going to quit if we bomb Iran. I'm trying to watch my language because TikTok doesn't like it when I say things that are too extreme. So I'm trying to be careful here. She's not a good person. She sympathizes with America's enemies. She defended Assad, the dictator in Syria, for far too long until she got this job. And then suddenly, thank you, Amy P. Suddenly she got a little more critical of Assad, the dictator who killed 500,000 people because she wanted this job in the administration. She defends Russia on Ukraine. She basically defends America's allies, America's enemies, left and right. And a lot of our allies are concerned that she may leak intelligence to our enemies. So Trump made her the top intelligence official in the White House who sees every bit of American intelligence that's out there. Very scary. I love it. Andy B goes, are you talking about Tulsi? That's who I'm talking about. You guessed it. So yeah, she's bad news. She's not doing well right now, which is great. Laura Loomer. I think I mentioned this, but it's worth mentioning it again. Laura Loomer is, I was watching a sort of a MAGA person, or at least a Republican on TV yesterday or last night, saying that Trump basically is getting his advice on Iran from Laura Loomer. That's his top source. That's who he's listening to. Laura Loomer is this woman who Donald Trump really likes. Donald Trump likes her so much that he got into trouble during the campaign. You may recall around September or so, there were all these photos of Donald Trump and his big campaign plane, and he kept being with this woman with dark hair and big black glasses and dark hair by his side, and he kept having his arm around her and kept hugging her on camera, and it was a little wild. So make sure. Sorry, Clutch is seeing mic static. Is anybody else getting mic static on TikTok or not? If it is, I'd say go and come back. If nobody else is having it, just want to check and make sure. Nope. Okay. Pickle saying yes. A couple are, interestingly, a little. Well, you know what? Let me try one thing. I'm going to unplug and plug back in. All right, there we go. All right. Hopefully, let's see if that does anything. Unplugged and plugged it back in. So let's see. Anyway, it may also be sometimes these cords kind of with it's fine. As long as it's not enough, we're okay. So Laura Loomer we're talking about. Laura Loomer reportedly is Trump's top advisor. She's a private citizen. So Laura Loomer is the woman who was seen in too many photos during the campaign hugging Trump, and he was getting really lovey-dovey with her. Well, the news broke, and people were like, and Laura Loomer is truly wacky. I mean, I could not read to you some of the racist stuff she said, because if I did, TikTok would ban me. TikTok doesn't like us repeating things, even when it's other people saying it. She is horrific, this woman. Absolutely. She's a nut job, and she's horrific. I mean, as far as she's a racist, but she's also a nut job. Laura Loomer. So Trump, the news breaks that she's getting lovey-dovey with Trump. Trump has to ban her from the plane. So for the last 2 months of the election, we don't see Laura Loomer. Then he wins. She comes back to the White House. Remember when Trump fired all those White House staffers, like all the National Security Council and all these other top people? It was because Laura Loomer told him to. Laura Loomer told him and said, these are very bad people. You've got to get rid of them. Well, she now is telling Trump to bomb Iran. She tweeted yesterday and said that, do I have the quote here from Laura? She said, an airstrike on a nuclear facility is not a full-scale war. Well, okay, technically, One airstrike is not a full-scale war. But if we attack Iran's nuclear facility, its main nuclear facility with big bombs, it's an active war and we will be at war. But reportedly, she is the person who Trump is getting his military advice from. This, Google her, Laura Loomer, Loomer. You can read firsthand the horrific things she said. It's very bad. So that's kind of nice. Finally, actually, I think we'll call it quits for there and we can talk. That was only half an hour. That's pretty good. So let's hang out and talk now. I have no idea, Dave. You're asking me about nuclear reactors in Canada? Sorry, you're beyond me on that one. Dave, I can answer Dave's question about three branches of government, and somebody else was asking this earlier on TikTok. Doesn't Congress have to get involved? So the problem is that Congress, the U.S. Senate, has to declare war. But we haven't declared war since World War II. Since World War II, we have clearly been in many military battles and many long conflicts, right? We were in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years, right? They were not officially wars. Congress never, the Senate never declared war. So unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where the Senate's war power has been totally watered down so that and the president's commander-in-chief power, because in America, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, his commander-in-chief power has grown significantly so that he is able to attack sort of in self-defense. And then the attacks keep going, like in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years, but they get away with it. So no, Congress should have a say. There are laws about it and stuff too for consultation, but when it comes down to it, every president, since World War II, since after World War II, has attacked and even gotten involved in wars without getting approval. Uberto, I appreciate that you're pro-Israel, but don't spam. Not good. I don't want to block you because the mods will block you if you keep posting the same thing over and over again. Don't do that. You posted it once and that was fine, but don't keep posting stuff. Iran and Iraq war? Oh God, no. I'd have to bone up. First of all, that's like the 1980s. I'd have to bone up on the Iran-Iraq war anyway, to be honest. I haven't thought about that since the 1980s when I was in graduate school. That's okay. I just was warning you because the mods will block you if you keep posting the same thing. So he's fine. He's fine. Anyway. But no, I do not necessarily oppose. I don't want to say I'm in the middle. I lean towards going in. I lean towards Trump's position. I mean, even a broken clock is right twice a day. In America, they're right twice a day. In Europe, they're right once a day, 24 hours. But as I've said before on the show, and I did a video about it today, and it got exactly the comments I thought it would. Some people's anger with Israel has clouded their judgment. They are so obsessed with Israel that they cannot analyze Iran separately. That's not good. You should be able to make a judgment on whether Iran does or doesn't have nukes, on whether Iran is or isn't trying to get nukes, and on whether it is or isn't a good thing for Iran to get nukes. José, lo siento, puedo hacer toda la emisión en español, pero si lo hago en español, la mayor parte de la gente no van a entender. No sé cuándo, pero un día puede ser que voy a hacerlo en español, pero ahorita no puedo. Sorry, somebody was asking me to do the broadcast in Spanish. I was like, I can't. I said, I could, but I can't. Because if I do, most of you are going to leave. But I do speak Spanish, yes. And I would love to. So, it's funny. Somebody on TikTok emailed me and said, we so could use a show in Spanish. But, and honestly, I did go to the doctor today. Finally, he did say I'm stressing my voice. So I've got to go for another test where they film you and see how you speak so that I can go for speech therapy to speak better. Because I am straining my voice, and it's acid reflux, it's nasal drip, it's sort of a combination of everything. So I don't want to start another show. Gracias. I don't want to start another show though, but it would be fun to do Spanish at some point. I'd have to study my vocabulary though, because I don't know all the military vocabulary in Spanish. Sorry, what were we saying? I wanted to respond to that guy. No, it's okay. Don't worry. What were we talking about? I studied Spanish for like 12 years and I like it. It was my first second language. What were we talking about, guys? Going to Iran. Yeah, going to Iran. Right. So I talked about this the other day about kind of what I think of all of this. I think a couple things. Trump is the worst president to have in place for this conflict because I don't think he's qualified. And I think he's like a waffler. And I think his heart isn't in the right place, right? Trump makes decisions based on what's best for Trump. He doesn't make decisions based on what's best for America. So that worries me. Second of all, Israel. Israel went in too soon from my point of view. And I'm going to talk about later about what I mean by that, but about the second part of that. But Israel went in too soon. I'm not saying that it was wrong for Israel to go in. It was technically wrong, okay? Under international law, there was not an imminent threat from Iran. And there's got to be an imminent threat for you to be able to invade and sort of preemptively take out their military before you get attacked. The idea is you've got intelligence that the other guy is attacking you tomorrow. So you're allowed to attack him today to stop him. That's allowed in international law. Israel did not have intelligence that Iran was about to build a nuke, right? Like in a day or whatever. So legally, Israel was wrong. I think also politically, Israel was wrong in the sense that Iran was negotiating with Biden. They weren't doing much. They were dragging their feet. Biden had given them 60 days or else to reach a deal. It had already passed 60 days, but there was another negotiation happening on Sunday. So Sunday, 4 days ago, there was another meeting of the Biden people and the Iranians to have. So the negotiations were not over yet. The Biden people did not declare the Biden. Did I say Biden? I am saying Biden. Thank you. I saw Mika say Biden. The Trump people did not declare the negotiations dead. The Trump people said, no, they're still happening. We're meeting the Iranians on Sunday. So it bothers me that Israel invaded because it was not an imminent threat from the Iranians. And the Trump people were still negotiating with the Iranians. So they didn't need to attack yet. So that bothers me on both of those fronts. But if negotiations fail with Iran, A, negotiations fail. B, we determine, and pretty much the whole international community is determined, that Iran continues to move towards that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, but they're doing it slowly. Okay, so that Iran is still moving towards building a nuclear weapon, then Iran has to be stopped at some point. Didn't have to be last Friday. But and we talked about this. I even did a survey with you guys, and most of you agreed. On TikTok, they did. I forgot on YouTube, we can do polls. I forgot about that. We can do polls. Start a poll. Let me try a poll on YouTube. We can do another one on TikTok, actually. Let me see what I say. Let's do the survey saying, let's try this. If negotiations fail, should we let Iran get a nuclear weapon? Okay, that's my question. If negotiations fail, should we let Iran get a nuclear weapon? All right, I didn't want a third option. It's making me put a third. Don't do that. Hold on. I have to now kill this and come back. I put a third option by accident. Start a poll. There we go. All right, start poll. There we go. I always forgot we can do that on YouTube. There we go. So same thing for you guys. Okay. If negotiations fail, but I want one of the mods to put a poll up so you actually can, because it's hard to see on the screen. But if negotiations fail, which basically the negotiations would be Iran giving up their ability to build a weapon. If negotiations fail, it's really not a biased question. I don't think it's biased at all. It literally is the question. If negotiations fail, should we just let Iran build a nuke or should we stop them? Because at that point, the only alternative is military. Doesn't mean it has to be today, but at that point, the only option is military. I think, thank you for the gift there. Who was that gift? Thank you, Adventures. I think most people are not totally comfortable with the war that's going on right now. But most people would say that they're not comfortable with Iran getting a nuclear weapon, period. And that's why I say Israel jumped the gun. Israel went too soon. Okay. Oh, Brian Tyler Cohen does it in Spanish. Good for him. Wow. Israel did it too soon. But I think someday, if negotiations failed, America is going to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, period, along with the Israelis. So that's why I'm saying calling the Israelis the instigators doesn't quite work, because the difference is Israel did it too soon, but America would have been doing it. I speak 5 languages, including English. Somebody asked. Israel did it too soon, but someday America would have been invading. And why is Israel allowed to? The same reason the Russians are allowed to and the North Koreans are allowed to. Once you get nuclear weapons, you can't really boss somebody around and make them get rid of them. That's it. That's it. Doesn't mean we want everybody to get nuclear weapons, right? But a lot of people, I do not speak Hebrew, no. A lot of people have nuclear weapons. I don't like Pakistan. I don't like India having them. I really don't like Pakistan having them. I really don't like North Korea having them. And the Russians? Ouais, je parle français, ouais. Français, c'est mon... Of course, ouais, je vais me tromper, évidemment, parce que j'essaie de parler français avec toi, mais français, c'est mon deuxième langue. Ma deuxième langue, pardon. Yeah. So that's my position on this. And I think it's right. I really do. I think most people, if they think about it, would say there's no way to let the Iranians get nukes. So the poll is showing 55 votes on YouTube. 89% say no, we shouldn't let them get the weapon. 11% say yes. Now, I could change the poll and I could say, if negotiations fail, should we stop Iran from getting a weapon by military force? You know, I could almost see somebody saying that too. You know what I mean? No, Omar, we're not at war because we haven't bombed yet. Omar was asking if we're officially at war. The U.S. hasn't bombed Iran yet. So right now we're not at war anyway. The question becomes, if we bomb their facility, are we at war? Well, that's an interesting question too, because think about Pakistan and India. Pakistan and India just bombed each other like 3 or 4 times. Were they at war? Right? Thank you, Dave, for the gift. Were they at war? I don't think so. They stopped, by the way. So like, just because you bomb someone doesn't mean you're at war. It is an act of war. As Stephen just said, it's an act of war. But acts of war, the Russians commit acts of war all the time against NATO, but we don't go to war against Russia. So anyway, the U.S. is not at war, but I think if we bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, they're going to perceive us as being at war. Yes. And then the question becomes, which is a good question. And I will say this. I mean, again, I am not sympathetic to Iran on this at all, but the interesting question is, where does this stop? Right? I mean, let's say we bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Scully. We have a dragon over on TikTok. Let's say Iran, we're able to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, but Iran keeps fighting. And Iran decides to like sick terrorists on Europe and America. Where does it end? I mean, I think where it ends is you then try to take out the Iranian government, but are you able to do that? You know? Well, Saddam Hussein, I mean, Iran may have a huge army, but Saddam Hussein had a huge army too, and they were useless because we destroyed them. American bombers can cause a lot of problems against a huge army. See, same answer on YouTube. If negotiations fail, are you okay with Iran getting a nuke? No, 85%. Yes, 15%. That's very close to the 89% no we've got on YouTube as well. And that's very close to what we had last night. So yeah. Thank you, Jay. So yeah, no, this is why I get upset with the MAGA people with Ukraine, for example, when they say it's not our war. I don't care what happens halfway around the world. Well, What matters halfway around the world affects us. I mean, first of all, 9/11, 3,000 people wouldn't have died had we paid more attention, not paid more attention, but had we known what was going around halfway around the world, right? I mean, if we could have stopped Osama bin Laden before, I don't know that we could have, but if we could have stopped him before, it would have been a good thing. We would have saved 3,000 people. So, I think this is another of those examples. Iran, I did a video today on TikTok, actually, going through, God, I could go through it with you guys. It'll take a minute, but I did a video on TikTok about all the things Iran, it wasn't even all of them, that Iran has done over the last 45 years. Horrific things. It's a very bad government. It is a very evil government. It does not compare to most governments on the planet. North Korea compares. Very few other ones do to Iran in terms of how bad they are. Israel doesn't compare. The US doesn't compare. Even Russia, I would almost say even Russia, ironically, might not be as bad as Iran. Maybe. And anybody who follows my coverage of Ukraine knows what I think of Russia. Iran is that bad. So, but yeah, I mean, I could go through the list. If people want to push it, I can go through the list. Israel, bad in Gaza. Then again, they did have a 9/11. The Palestinians did kill over 1,000 Israelis in a horrific terror attack. And in a country the size of Israel, it was a big deal. And the Israelis responded in a big way. But you did kill 1,000 of their people. I'm just saying, I am not, as a lawyer, I'm not a big fan of clean hands, of unclean hands. Hamas is the elected government of Gaza. It was elected by the Palestinian people. I'm not going to get into, this is not going to be a show about Palestine, but people always want to keep doing that. But, this is, and by the way, this isn't about Israel. It doesn't matter if you hate Israel. You've got to decide if you think it's okay for Iran to get a nuclear weapon. It doesn't matter if you don't like Israel. It just doesn't, and too many people, and you should go check out the videos. I did a video going through all the list of the horrific things Iran has done, why this is a government that we cannot trust. And it's a government that you really don't want to have nuclear weapons. And so many of the comments, but Israel's bad, right? Not talking about Israel. We're talking about whether Iran should have a nuclear weapon. It doesn't matter what Israel did in Gaza in trying to determine whether Iran should get a nuclear weapon. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what America did to the Native Americans if you're trying to determine whether Iran should have a nuclear weapon and whether it's safe. It just doesn't. No, I mean, it really doesn't. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. You've got to make an independent decision based on Iran and based on your own country and your own livelihood and whether it is safe to have a country like Iran having nuclear weapons. And it's not. All right. But I did the video on TikTok. People can go watch it. It's 3 minutes long. It goes through all the horrors. They execute children still. Was it Masa Amini, who they killed 3 years ago because she had a lock of hair showing, and they arrested her and killed her. They try to assassinate people around the world, Iranian citizens around the world who are dissidents. That poor woman in New York, what's her name? Misan. I'm trying to remember her name. I'm not going to get her name right. The woman with kind of the frizzy brown hair who's on TV a lot. They've tried to kill her 3 times. She's an Iranian dissident. They don't like her because she lives abroad and she criticizes the Ayatollah. So they've tried to murder her 3 times in the United States. This is not normal. This is not normal behavior. They killed 241 Marines. Remember when the Marine barracks blew up in Beirut and we killed 241 Marines? That was Iran. Yeah. They hired somebody to kill Donald Trump before the election. That was Iran. They hired somebody to kill Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, 2 senior Trump officials. That was Iran. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I am going to pull up. You know what? I am pulling up the list. No, because this is important stuff. And since we now have the Iran fans claiming it's not objective to tell you the history of Iran, we're going to talk about the history of Iran. Thank you for, I told you, you never want to do this to people. Don't challenge people because you're not going to like what you get. Here we go. All right. Um, Actually, I'm going to read you this. I'm going to read you. Should we do it? I'm going to read the essay. I wrote an essay and I did a video on it. Iran's theocratic dictatorship is one of the most consistently evil governments on the planet. This is not a defense of Israel, but Israel's excesses don't excuse Iran's reign of terror. Since the Islamic Republic came to power in 1979, it has waged a nonstop war against its own people and much of the world. Internally, it's a totalitarian theocracy. Women are beaten for showing their hair. Gay people are executed, and political dissent is crushed with medieval brutality. In 2022, they murdered Mahsa Amini for showing a few inches of hair, then responded to mass protests by gunning down teenagers, imprisoning thousands, and hanging young men from cranes. Over the past 4 decades, the regime in Iran is estimated to have executed as many as 30,000 political prisoners, many after sham trials, torture, or no trials at all. Iran also executes minors, including for so-called moral crimes. Girls as young as 9 years of age can be sentenced to death under Iranian law. It is one of the handful of governments on earth that still kills children legally. This is a regime that treats basic human rights as a threat and punishes those threats with death. But the evil doesn't stop at Iran's borders. For decades, Iran has exported terror as a matter of state policy. Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon, armed, trained, and funded by Iran. Same goes for the terrorists running Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Those rockets fired into Israel, that's Iran's handiwork. More of Iran's handiwork was in 1983, when Iranian operatives orchestrated the bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, killing 241 American service members, one of the deadliest attacks on U.S. forces in modern history. What else has Iran done? They assassinated the incoming leader, the man who was going to win the election in Lebanon. They didn't like him, so they killed him. They propped up dictator for life Bashar Assad in Syria, helping him butcher 500,000 people. They've armed the Houthis in Yemen, who now fire missiles at Saudi Arabia and Israel, and also target Americans. And they routinely launch attacks on international shipping passing their shores. And in Iraq, Iranian-backed militias have killed hundreds of American troops with IEDs. This isn't foreign policy, it's blood-soaked sabotage on a global scale. Iran's regime also operates like a transnational crime syndicate. It uses its embassies, mosques, and consulates to surveil dissidents, plot assassinations, and conduct terror operations abroad. In 2011, they tried to bomb a restaurant in Washington, D.C. to kill the Saudi ambassador. They've plotted to murder former officials like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo on American soil. Their agents have hunted Iranian journalists and activists in Europe, kidnapped dissidents in broad daylight, and in 2022, Salman Rushdie was stabbed in response to a religious death sentence against him by the Ayatollah, simply because the Iranian dictator didn't like Rushdie's bush. Iran isn't just threatening democracy at home, it's actively attacking it abroad. You cannot look at Iran's nuclear program in a vacuum. This isn't just another country. This is a regime built on repression, violence, and fear. It kills its own citizens, destabilizes its neighbors, and hunts down critics wherever they live. Iran's government isn't merely authoritarian or extreme, it's systemically and proudly evil. The world ignores Iran at its peril. Why I wrote that was because far too many people were saying that the Iranians were actually the good guys. They were saying that there's no reason Iran shouldn't get a nuclear weapon because they're okay. Iran is not okay. The Iranian people, I'm sure, are wonderful people. Their government is a theocratic dictatorship that has been terrorizing the world for 45 years, and they've also been terrorizing their own people. They are not good. It is just like North Korea in terms of the level of badness we are dealing with. And in the same way, North Korea shouldn't have nukes, neither should the Iranians. That is why. And it is an important consideration because if we are literally talking about, yes, someday Iran will have nuclear weapons, then we've got to decide whether it's safe for the world for Iran to have those nuclear weapons. There you go. You asked for it. You got it. People kept going with the Iran is just like, because honestly, all day I've been feeling, and I mean, I realize they're trolls, but all day I've been fielding comments from people saying, oh, thank you for the gift there. Oh, thank you, Janice. People saying, oh, Iran's no worse than America. And frankly, even the Israel comparison, you guys have no idea. Israel has done bad in Gaza, but the Palestinians did bad on October 7th. And before that, Israel and the Palestinians have been killing each other for 100 years. The predecessors to Israel and the predecessors to the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, oh boy, have they held their own. Go Google the history of the Palestinians and who they've killed, just as bad as what the Israelis have done. So, you know, this is a complicated world and you need to do your history. But especially with, and it goes into the Iran stuff too. Too many people want easy answers. They want you to tell them, these guys are bad, these guys are good. Boop, boop, boop. In the Middle East, you don't get too many easy answers. Iran is one of them. Well, that was fun. Hope the mods had fun with that. Oh, we got more people coming in. Well, we got more people coming in. Let's keep talking. Questions? The rest of you folks? TikTok, Discord, YouTube. Well, I don't trust Trump with nukes either, but Trump hasn't done anything. Trump doesn't kill gays. Trump hasn't killed 30,000 dissidents. Trump hasn't killed any dissidents yet. So, you know, I don't like Trump, but Trump has done nothing compared to Iran. Israel has done nothing compared to Iran. But anyway, I did. The Palestinians tried to overthrow the king of Jordan. I didn't remember that. Yeah. There's, you know, when you scratch in anybody's history, there's a lot of bad to go around. Oop, I may have to put my, oh, maybe not. Oh, the light is great though. Wow. The light hitting my windows is fabulous though, because it's getting like the, you guys can see, it's getting all the little dots on the window. It's really cool. Thank you for the gift there. Please do follow me. Anybody who's on TikTok, I do a show Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. We talk about the latest from Ukraine, but lately we've been talking about, well, we talk about Washington as well and Trump, but lately we've been talking about Iran because it's important. So there. The latest is Trump is preparing to go to war, but has not made the decision yet to go to war. We found out today that Trump has approved the war plan. In other words, if we go to war, the plan is in place, right? But we don't have the approval yet for Trump to go in. And that's kind of where it stands. Obviously, Israel and the Palestinians, Israel and the Iranians keep hitting each other. Trump, I think, is getting closer and closer to attacking. He says he wants Iran to give up their nuclear program. The Iranians certainly sound like they made clear that they're not planning on it, on giving it up. I don't know. I think, honestly, the timeline right now is how long it takes for U.S. weapons to get in place. What was interesting to me was the third aircraft carrier isn't in place until I had read early next week. Now, I don't know enough. You know, my background is foreign policy. I don't know enough from the military folks out there whether, you know, if you felt you needed the third aircraft carrier, would you wait to launch hostilities until it was in place? I would think you would, especially because there's no pressing need. It's not like we can't wait till next week. Now, sure, Israelis are dying and et cetera. And frankly, Iranians are dying. I mean, Iranian civilians are dying too. So there is that consideration. But I mean, in terms of from a U.S. war perspective, it's no more dangerous for the U.S. to attack next week than it is this week. So I have a feeling if it's going to take till early next week for our third aircraft carrier to get there, that the attack's going to wait till then. We have not forgotten Ukraine, but there isn't that much news, and we're on the verge of a world war. So I kind of felt maybe we've got a more important topic than Ukraine right now. And I did check the news, and there isn't any news really anyway coming from Ukraine. Let me give the dog some water. One quick second. You get water, or don't you bother me again for treats? That's it. No. All right. The dog's doing her usual thing. Now Miss Smarty Pants knows she whines around this time for me to give her water. Now she whines and I give her water and she keeps looking at me because she wants treats, as if I'm going to like interrupt the show for treats. Not happening. Is China helping? China put out a statement today, but that was about it. Actually, no, not a statement today. China is not doing much. North Korea put out a statement today. That was interesting. Thank you, Melanie, for the gift. North Korea put out a statement today. Well, I said world war because it could be a world war. I don't think it's going to lead to a world war, but you certainly have that potential when you've got Iran and Israel and the United States. This is a bigger topic than Ukraine at the moment. It's not just a bigger topic, it's a huge topic, and we are going to talk about it. And there isn't any news coming from Ukraine anyway. So, I checked today. The biggest news was that by the end of 2025, every NATO country should have upped its defense spending to 2% of GDP, which is great. But wait, orage d'ici, c'est vrai. Yep. Anyway, Iran's capacity to reach the U.S. mainland, they cannot. They cannot. No. North Korea can, but Iran cannot. Yes, but I care about the Ukrainians, so I don't want people to think we're just ignoring them. But this show covers U.S. news or the news from world news from an American perspective. This is the biggest story in the world right now, and it's by far the biggest story in the world. There you go. All right. Oops. There we go. It is our war. If North Korea gets a nuclear, if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, it sure as hell is our war. For example, what if Iran decides to nuke Saudi Arabia and they end oil production in Saudi Arabia and oil prices jump to $200 or $300 a barrel, right? How are you going to feel if the price of gas for your gasoline in your car goes up 10 times and you're paying $20 a gallon or $50 a gallon? Then you're going to say it's not your war? I got news for you. Guess what happened during the early 1970s? I'm forgetting whether it was the Suez Crisis or which was it was the 7 day which war. I'm forgetting which war it was, but between the Israelis and the Arabs, and the Arabs launched an oil embargo on the Americans, and we didn't have enough gasoline. We literally had lines at the pumps. We had to ration gasoline. So it's not your war. I got news for you. It was your war back in 1973. Yeah, it was the Yom Kippur War. Yeah, 6. I was going to say, at first I said 7, and I know it wasn't 7. 6 Day War. Yeah. So you better believe. This is, by the way, the people who say it's not our war tend to be Trumpers. Guess what? Trump thinks it's our war. Trump is literally preparing to enter the war. Trump, who's the most anti-war guy out there. Trump, who's the most Trump, who's the most it's not our war guy on the planet. Exactly. USS Liberty, I didn't even mention when they attacked one of our ships and killed sailors. Yeah. So yeah. Well, that's an interesting question, Cliff. Exactly. If Iran went nuclear, whether Egypt and Saudi Arabia would join in, they might. No, Iran poses a threat to the region, and unfortunately, the region matters to us because of oil. And people who say it doesn't matter because of oil, this sort of got me during the Gulf War the first time when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And people were like, you're just helping Kuwait because of oil. And at the time, I was like, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? Like, you think we're going to let Saddam Hussein control all the oil in the Middle East? Are you nuts? Like, of course we're doing it because of oil. Like, what do you think? It's like amazing. Liberty. Which one was the one? I'm forgetting. Which was the one that the Iranians also attacked one of our? Was it the Cole? The Iranians attacked one of our other ships as well. Anyway. The question is, who's really making decisions about war in the White House? Donald Trump and Laura Loomer. Oh, it's Trump. Oh, no, Trump's making the decisions, Manana. He's making the decisions. You just shouldn't trust his decisions because I don't think he's very smart. Sleeper cells, Iran may have them. They may, But then again, if Iran had sleeper cells, they're not doing much in Israel. So those sleeper cells clearly didn't get into Israel because right now, meaning sleeper cells, meaning secret terrorists who have snuck in and can cause terrorism. If Iran could, they would be doing it in Israel. There's no terrorism in Israel right now. North Korea's statement was stupid. I almost was going to tell you guys, and I read it and I went, whatever. It was just whatever. It didn't matter. It was just America's bad, imperialism, or it was just kind of stupid, Can Iran go toe to toe with us? No, no. Now that does not mean that it might not take a long time. Saddam Hussein in the first one, actually, we bombed the hell out of them for, was it 70 days? Or I forget the number of days we bombed them. It was a long time, and we still had to put troops on the ground. So it's just because Iran's military isn't a match for ours doesn't mean bombing is enough to make a difference right away, right? Do I think any country will join to help Iran? No. Having said that, the Houthi terrorists in Yemen might. Hamas terrorists might. Hezbollah terrorists might. Countries? No. I mean, the Houthis control half of Yemen, so maybe they count as a country. I don't know. But otherwise, the Russians haven't lifted a finger. Chinese? I don't think so. I mean, the chance of, look, somebody asked, Cherise asked the chance of a war. Currently, we are going to war. Currently, as of today, we are going to war with Iran. But that may change because Iran may say, you know what, we're giving up our nuclear program. And then the war goes away. Trump may say, Iran may say, Donald Trump, we just bought $1 billion in Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, in Trump coin. And Trump says, okay, no war. I mean, who knows, right? Trump waffles a lot. You just don't know. So as of today, yes. So I'm looking at people's comments here too. Thoughts on Netanyahu? I can't stand Netanyahu. Nate. I do not like Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel. I said this before. I think he's a warmonger. And some of the Israelis and others were asking what the word, it's a good word in English, warmonger, M-O-N-G-E-R. A warmonger is somebody who just wants war. They want war. It doesn't really matter what war, they want war. And like war is always the answer. They don't want diplomacy. They think diplomacy is weak. And I don't think Netanyahu, who's the leader of Israel today, I don't think he wants the Palestinians to exist. I don't think he wants them to get a state, right? I'm happy I'd like them to get a state. I don't think he wants them to get their own country. I don't think he does. This light is going to drop. Well, the light will go away soon. So I do not like him. I don't like Ariel Sharon, who was the guy before him too. I think the last 20 years, Israel has had crazy right-wing leaders, not always, but mostly, which is too bad because they've really ruined Israel's reputation, unfortunately, which is, again, too bad, So no, don't like them. Don't like them. You can Google North Korea, what they said. It was stupid. I mean, it was North Korea, we're angry. Who cares, It just doesn't matter what the North Koreans said. That's right. There were massive protests. Actually, Alex said, if memory correct, weren't the Israelis protesting against him before all this started? The Israelis had been holding massive protests against Netanyahu, well, up until October 7th. It was the Palestinians that killed the Israeli protests. There were massive protests against Netanyahu by the Israeli citizens. They couldn't stand him. A lot of them hated him, and they wanted his government to come down. And then October 7th happened, right? Palestinians, and I'm sorry, it was the Palestinians. They attacked, and that changed everything. So, unfortunately, the opposition, I mean, when you're at war, opposition movements get a lot weaker because you get accused of being unpatriotic and everything else. You know what I mean? How does this affect other countries like the UK? The UK is involved and will be involved, yes. The UK has positioned some of its own forces. The UK is sending Typhoon fighter jets, I just read, among other assets I think that they're providing to the Americans. So if America goes in, I believe the UK is going to go in. The Germans have indicated an interest, I think. I don't know if they're going to go in militarily, but the German chancellor, the top guy, said yesterday basically that Iran cannot be permitted to get a nuclear weapon, which I was like, wow, that was surprising. And right, the UK has bases in Cyprus. Exactly. I mean, who are the U.S. allies? Interesting question. I mean, we know who the U.S. allies are. The question is, who would be the U.S. allies who would help? That's an interesting question. The Brits. Would the French help? I don't know. I mean, Macron, the prime minister, keeps talking about we need to end the war. We have to have peace. I don't know. Would the Germans help? Maybe. The Cypriots, in terms of their bases in the Brits, maybe. The Jordanians might help. The Saudis might help. in their own way. I mean, quietly or whatever, you know? But in terms of major powers, I'd be very curious about the major powers to what degree they would help. But Turkey's in kind of a weird situation, you know, because of the Muslim thing. I don't know. I don't know if Turkey would help. I mean, it's a really interesting question. I don't know well enough, sort of who America. When I say who America's allies, I mean which. Thank you for the gift, by the way. So I was in the middle of talking. Sorry, that was Succeed with. Oh, thank you, Succeed. That was the travel one. Thank you. But yeah, so the UK is helping. Yes, no, the UK is already helping. UK will help, and they're already helping. We're going to war as of today. We are going to war, but it's not happening yet, so it can change. But as of today, yeah, we're going to war, but that can change. You know, my perspective. I mean, it's kind of hard because we talked about so much, but as I said, I think Trump wants a deal. Trump wants Iran to give up its nuclear program, and he's willing to say, okay, if they do. But Iran sounds like they're saying no, and Trump is preparing to bomb their nuclear program if they say no. And he's moving enough assets in place, equipment, etc., that I don't think he's bluffing. I don't think he's bluffing. Thank you for the gift there, Blue Ariel. So we are not bombing Iran yet, just the Israelis so far. Will it provoke Article 5? I don't think so. If we bomb Iran, I don't think you can invoke Article 5. I mean, you'd have to say Iran was a threat to NATO. I mean, And also Article 5, as we learned with Ukraine, Article 5 doesn't mean you automatically go. They're talking about the NATO Charter. Article 5 does not mean you automatically go to war. Article 5 just means, we discuss with the NATO allies whether they will come to our aid, right? Article 5 is the provision of the NATO Charter that says an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all NATO members. But it doesn't mean we automatically go to war. If Russia attacks Poland, Russia invades Poland, a NATO member, Article 5 is invoked. Poland says, I have been invaded. Come to my defense under Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which says if any of us are invaded, all of us are invaded. We must all go to war. NATO doesn't go to war. NATO holds a meeting. And at the meeting, NATO discusses if NATO's going to war. And NATO can say, yes, we agree, but it has to be unanimous, first of all. And NATO says, yes, we unanimously agree that Article 5 is invoked. They don't say we're going to war. They say this has been an attack on all of us. And then the next step, NATO says, each of us may respond as we wish in helping Poland. So you can help Poland militarily, but if you choose not to help Poland militarily, you can do that too. So Article 5 does not mean going to war necessarily. I know the North Korean leader and Trump were best friends. I know. Well, Trump thinks they're best friends. I don't know if they are best friends, Who's being a dick to Misha? Don't be a dick to Misha. Who's being a jerk to Misha? Favorite, don't be a jerk to Misha. If you are, he's one of the regulars. He's got more cred than you. So be nice. City says, why did Tehran evacuate in such an alarming way? Because they're getting bombed. But I mean, quite literally, they're getting bombed. They're running out of gasoline. This was a couple days ago. They were running out of gasoline in the city. Misha, did you say something bad? All right, Misha, you be nice too then. Everybody be nice. All right. I don't know who said what, but be nice. But they're running out of gasoline. A lot of the grocery stores are closing. They don't have food. I don't know what's up with electricity and water, but things are getting bombed in your neighborhoods. And basically the Iranian government is all over Tehran. They've got a lot of military facilities there. Bottom line is, if it were my town and it were getting bombed, I'd get the hell out of there. So I think it makes sense that they all tried to leave because they're like, forget it, So yeah. So it makes sense to me why people in Tehran would try to leave. I don't think people are going to die in the UK. I don't think so. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I'm going to call it quits in about 2 minutes. Misha did not say anything stupid. Okay, Cliff, don't be rude. I'm sticking with Manda and Ash on this one. So sorry, Misha. Discord, no, because I can't. Well, I also can't do Discord because I got to protect my voice now. I did go to the voice doctor today. He said I am straining my voice. So I've got to go and get, it was not fun, by the way. They do put a thing down your nose. It was not fun. Gave me a headache, but my voice is strained. I've got to go for some more tests so they can see how I use my voice and then get physical therapy to teach me how to use my voice. It was an endoscopy, exactly. Or, well, an endoscopy to your larynx. But then I get physical therapy to teach me how to use my voice better, which is not a bad idea. I mean, it's a very good idea. So thank you for those of you who chastised me and said, I need to go to an ENT. I did, and you were right. So he said it was the beginning. He said, I'm not causing damage yet, but there's the beginning of some damage, which will reverse itself. But speech, exactly. But I've got to go and get a little more training because doing the show every night. And one problem I've always had is, I was telling the doctor this. He said he has the same thing. He said projecting is a problem, which I thought it was. I project a lot. And projection is speaking like this very loudly. So you could, for example, speaking on stage. I did a lot of drama in high school, and you'd speak on stage. We had microphones, but you kind of had to speak loud enough to be heard. A lot of the stuff we did. And I learned to speak loud enough to be heard in an auditorium. And I'm very good at that. But when I get on camera on shows like this, I do speak louder than I need to. And it's always been a problem when I see myself on camera with a bunch of you here. I feel like I'm on stage, and therefore I start to project and speak loudly. And my mom used to catch me doing it. She'd be like, "You're talking really loudly," whenever I would do the show with you guys, or if I would do a video call with somebody. And I was like, "Really?" And I didn't realize, like, doing a video call, I would get into stage voice. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, all right. All right, guys, I'm going to hang up because, as I said, I'm trying to protect my voice a little bit. This has been okay. I can tell it's not bothering me as much as yesterday, but I want to be careful. Also, if the U.S. bombs Iran, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of video. So we want to protect the voice if we can. I will be. We'll be back tomorrow. Obviously, if any bombing happens, I'll be back before, but I'll be back tomorrow. TikTokers, please do follow me. I appreciate your support. I do several videos throughout the day. And correct, I have the mic. The thing too is I have this really good mic. With my podcast, I think I learned to speak more normally, and I've got to learn to speak more normally with the mic because, as we said, like, it's right here and it's a good mic. I mean, it's a very good mic. I bought it years ago. It's a Shure. It's the Joe Rogan mic. It's the Michael Jackson mic. So yeah. All right. Have a good night, guys. Misha, sorry again. I got confused. But I will see you guys tomorrow, and we'll see. 6 o'clock Eastern. We'll talk about this again. Don't get too scared. This is not the first time. I mean, military action should be taken seriously, but as I told people last night, this is not the first time the U.S. has had to bomb a country. It's not the first time the Brits or anybody else have had to bomb a country. It happens. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean a war starts, and it doesn't mean a world war. I know I use the word world war to scare everybody, but it doesn't mean a world war starts. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, it's bad for the countries involved, but exactly. And it won't be the last time, Now, it could always be a disaster. That's fair enough, James. But my point is, people worry and think, oh my God, you'll be in danger. If you don't live in Iran or Israel, you're probably not going to be in danger. Or you are a service member of a NATO ally. Then obviously you're risking your lives, of course. All right, guys. Kalinita fallen. All right. Have a good night, guys. I'm going to sign off Discord. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Appreciate all the gifts. Oh, hello for the kitten. Thank you, Janice. That was cute. All right. See you, Discord. That was very cute. All right, YouTubers, have a good night. Thank you for joining. And TikTokers,